Have you ever felt a quiet unease around someone who treats you kindly? They smile at you, they support you, or at least that's what it seems. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. It's not what they say. It's not what they do. It's a feeling, subtle, persistent, a flicker in their eyes, a tone that feels off, a forced laugh that lingers just a moment too long. And that's when it hits you. What if their kindness is just a mask? Carl Jung, one of the most profound explorers of the human psyche, had a name for this inner contradiction: the shadow. The shadow is not something outside of us, it's within. It is the darker half of our personality, buried deep in the unconscious, made up of everything we deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge: envy, hatred, resentment. We like to believe that our close friends or loved ones only wish the best for us. But Jung warned, what we fail to face within ourselves, we often project onto others. And what others fail to face within themselves, they project onto us. This projection can be dangerously subtle. A friend who jokes too sharply, a sibling who forgets your big day, a partner who always feels distant when you're doing well. We brush it off. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We tell ourselves, they didn't mean it. But should we? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone close to you wants you to win. And more terrifyingly, some may not even realize they're rooting against you. Hidden resentment often wears the costume of politeness, and silent hatred thrives in the dark corners of affection. So let me ask you this: are you truly safe in the company you keep? Or are you living with someone who smiles in your face while secretly hoping you fall? Today, we'll uncover 8 psychological signs, grounded in Jungian theory, that someone close to you may secretly hate you. It's subtle, it's slippery, and it hides behind a smile. You're sitting across from someone who claims to care about you. They laugh, crack a joke, and the people around you chuckle. But something inside you sinks. The joke felt too specific, too sharp. It targeted something deeply personal: your insecurities, your goals, your values. And when you pause or push back, they immediately shoot back with a smirk. Come on, you're too sensitive. It's just a joke. But here's the truth: it's not just a joke. Carl Jung had a name for this mechanism: shadow projection. In his view, we all carry a psychological shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, reject, or refuse to deal with. It includes our envy, shame, resentment, and fear of inadequacy. And when we don't confront this darkness within us, we begin to project it outward, onto the people around us, especially those who shine in ways we cannot. That's when jokes become weapons. When someone feels threatened by your confidence, they might mock it under the guise of humor. When they resent your growth, they may poke fun at your ambition. When they envy your relationships, they might tease your choices in love. Always with a wink, always with deniability. The brilliance of this tactic, whether they know it or not, is that it's hard to confront. If you challenge them, they'll dismiss your feelings. You're overthinking it, or it's just how I joke. And just like that, they've gaslit you into silence. You begin doubting yourself. You become more careful, quieter, smaller. But the joke was never harmless. It was a message that says, I see your light, and it makes me uncomfortable. Instead of dealing with their own shadow, they choose to chip away at yours. What's more dangerous is the repetition. These jokes aren't random. They return to the same wound, over and over, slowly carving self-doubt where confidence once lived. And if the dynamic continues, you'll start shrinking to fit their comfort zone. Jung warned us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And this is a prime example. Real connection doesn't require mockery. True affection doesn't sting. So the next time someone's laughter comes at the expense of your dignity, pause. Look past the smile. You may not be overreacting. You may be the only one finally seeing clearly. ... Not all betrayal comes with a knife in the back. Sometimes it comes in the form of forgotten reminders, missed messages, or accidental oversights that always seem to happen at the worst possible moment. And when you bring it up, oops, I totally forgot. Oh, I thought I told you. You're just overthinking again. But what if you're not? Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious motives, especially when we are unwilling to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves. And one of the most destructive forms of unacknowledged emotion is envy. When someone close to you feels threatened by your growth, your confidence, or your progress, but refuses to admit it, even to themselves, it doesn't just disappear. It manifests, often not through open hostility, but through small, persistent acts of sabotage. Imagine this. You tell a friend about a job interview you've been waiting for. They seem supportive, but when the day comes, they accidentally schedule something with you, distracting you. Or maybe they gave you advice that sounded right, but steered you away from what your gut was telling you. Or perhaps they were supposed to send you a critical reminder or document, and it mysteriously slipped their mind. Once or twice, a coincidence. But when these incidents form a pattern, especially at critical turning points, it's time to look deeper. Jung taught that people often act out their shadow unconsciously. That means your friend may not even realize they're sabotaging you, but their unconscious resentment, the part of them that feels threatened by your evolution, finds a way to level the playing field, not through confrontation, but through harmless forgetfulness. This type of sabotage is especially dangerous because it wears the mask of innocence. It erodes your confidence slowly, making you feel unsupported and unsure, while the other person maintains plausible deniability. They still get to look like your friend while quietly keeping you in place. Real support lifts you up. Hidden sabotage holds you back, one tiny mistake at a time. So how do you protect yourself? Observe the pattern. Ask yourself, are these accidents always happening when I'm doing well? When am I stepping into my power? If so, it might not be an accident at all. The people closest to you should amplify your voice, not dim it. If you find yourself second-guessing your instincts around someone, there's a reason. Trust the signal. Your evolution may be exposing their unresolved shadow, and their fear may be tripping you on purpose. You just shared good news. A promotion, a creative breakthrough, maybe even a personal milestone that took you years to reach. But instead of genuine happiness, the person across from you responds with, "Oh, that's nice. I did something similar last year." Then they shift the spotlight to themselves. Again, this isn't just a lack of enthusiasm. It's a sign of silent competition. A subtle but insidious pattern that reveals how some people, especially those closest to you, measure your growth as a threat rather than a joy. Carl Jung spoke often about the ego's fragility and its need to protect itself from perceived inferiority. For those who haven't reconciled their own limitations, someone else's success becomes unbearable. It reflects what they haven't done. It mirrors their stalled dreams, their abandoned goals, and their silent regrets. And instead of celebrating you, they compete with you, but not openly. That would require courage. Instead, they play the comparison game. You share an achievement, they match it or top it. You're proud of a new relationship. They mention how their partner just did something even more romantic. You talk about an award. They remember one they received back in the day. It never ends. The most dangerous part? On the surface, it doesn't look hostile. These people aren't shouting. They're not criticizing you directly. But they never let you fully own your moment. They redirect the attention. They flatten your win into a shared anecdote. And if you don't notice, you'll leave the conversation feeling smaller. Jung believed that this kind of behavior stems from unintegrated shadow material. Jealousy, inadequacy, fear of being left behind. These individuals often don't even realize they're doing it, but their psyche is screaming, "If you rise too high, I'll have to face how low I feel." And instead of rising with you, they pull focus back to themselves, again and again. What does true support look like? It doesn't compete. It doesn't need to interrupt your joy with a comparison. It simply says, "I'm proud of you," and means it. But silent competitors can't do that. Their sense of worth is too tied to being better, even in subtle ways. And that's why your progress feels threatening. So if you've ever walked away from a celebration feeling emotionally drained or minimized, pay attention. You may not be dealing with a supporter. You may be dealing with a silent rival. And as Jung would remind us, what they project onto you says more about them than it ever will about you. You were there for them. Every breakdown, every disappointment, every late night call. You showed up not because you had to, but because you cared. But now that your moment has come, when you need them, when you succeed, when you shine, they vanish. Or worse, they're present in body, but absent in spirit. This is superficial support, a hollow kind of companionship that disappears when your light starts to glow too brightly. Carl Jung once said that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And that is exactly what this dynamic creates. You find yourself surrounded by people, but emotionally orphaned. You win, and they respond with a nod. You celebrate, and they change the subject. You struggle, and their phone always seems to be on silent. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's emotional immaturity. But other times, it's something more dangerous. Resentment disguised as distance. When someone close to you cannot tolerate your growth or your vulnerability, they retreat. They tell themselves they're giving you space. But the truth is simpler. They're uncomfortable. Your wins stir their insecurities. Your struggles remind them of their own helplessness. And so, they stay quiet, detached, distant. The hard part is, they may never explicitly say they don't support you. They may still like your posts, send a birthday text, or ask how you are in passing. But it's all surface. Emotionally, they've checked out. And when you finally open your heart, share something important, something real, you're met with lukewarm replies, empty platitudes, or cold silence. Jung believed that the ego resists the success and vulnerability of others because it reveals what it has not yet resolved within itself. In other words, your growth exposes their stagnation. Your honesty reminds them of their emotional absence. And rather than confront that discomfort, they withdraw behind the mask of casual indifference. But emotional absence is still a message, one louder than words. True support isn't just about being around when things fall apart. It's also about standing beside you when things go well. It's about celebrating with sincerity, listening with presence, and showing up, not out of obligation, but love. If you keep feeling alone in your victories and unheard in your pain, ask yourself, are they truly with me? Or are they just nearby? Because someone who can't clap when you win may not be in your corner at all. They tell you they care, that they're only giving advice for your own good, that they're worried about your decisions, your direction, your independence. But somehow, after every conversation with them, you feel smaller, less certain, and strangely dependent. This isn't love. It's not wisdom. It's controlled by wearing the mask of concern. Carl Jung once said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And one of the most common ways people avoid themselves is by trying to manage the lives of others, especially those they claim to love. Their advice may sound thoughtful, their tone may seem gentle, but the effect? It's disempowering. It doesn't uplift. It undermines. You want to start a new project? They warn you it's too risky. You feel excited about a relationship, and they subtly plant doubt. You set boundaries. They question your judgment, not your reasons. And when you finally hesitate, second-guess yourself, or ask for their guidance again, they feel satisfied. Because now, you're right where they want you, uncertain without their input. This is not always conscious. In fact, most controllers believe they're being helpful. But if their help always leaves you feeling incapable, what they're really giving you is emotional dependence. Jung understood this dynamic as a projection of inner chaos. People who cannot face the unpredictability of their own emotions often seek to control others, to create the illusion of stability. If they can dictate your choices, then they don't have to confront their own fear of losing control. This pattern is especially insidious in close relationships, partners, parents, even lifelong friends. They confuse love with authority, and when you try to pull away, they don't scream or lash out. Instead, they guilt you. "I'm only trying to help," or they make you feel irrational. You're being defensive. The more you assert yourself, the more they tighten the grip, with advice, concern, suggestions, corrections. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't need control to feel safe. Support should feel like freedom, not a leash. True guidance helps you trust yourself more, not less. If their caring always comes with conditions, judgment, or consequences, it's not caring, it's coercion. You are not born to live according to someone else's comfort level. You don't owe anyone your obedience in exchange for affection. The moment love begins to make you doubt your own intuition, it's no longer love. It's a disguised fear of losing power. So ask yourself, do they really want what's best for me, or just what's most manageable for them? Because care that cages you is not protection, it's possession. They don't raise their voice. They don't openly argue. In fact, when they see you, they smile. They ask how things are going. They act like everything is fine. But behind your back, a different version of you exists. One you never agreed to. One they crafted, twisted, and shared in whispers. This is gossip, but not just idle talk. It's covert psychological warfare. The manipulation doesn't happen to your face. It happens in rooms you're not invited to. And by the time the damage reaches you, it's already too late. Carl Jung believed that the need to discredit others stems from the inability to face the unwanted parts of oneself. People who gossip are often carrying unresolved insecurity, envy, or shame. But instead of confronting those feelings, they displace them, redirecting their discomfort outward by reshaping how others see them. They may never attack your character head-on. Instead, they hint, they imply, they say things like, "I'm not sure you can trust her," or "He's changed a lot lately," followed by, "But don't say I said anything." This form of manipulation is powerful because it masquerades as concern while planting seeds of distrust. The most damaging part? It's silent. You begin to notice changes in how others treat you. Colleagues become distant. Friends stop sharing things. Opportunities vanish without warning. You feel the shift, but you can't trace the cause. That's the genius of reputation sabotage. It's invisible, but it hits hard. Jung taught that our shadow, everything we repress and avoid within ourselves, will find ways to express itself unconsciously. When someone gossips about you, especially if they once claimed to support you, they are likely projecting their unowned frustrations. Your success, your self-assurance, your integrity. It reminds them of what they lack. And so, instead of rising with you, they seek to lower you in the eyes of others. But gossip is not just unkind. It's a form of control. By shaping your public image, they reclaim power in a dynamic they feel inferior. The longer you stay unaware, the more effective their strategy becomes. What can you do? First, stay calm. Truth has a longer shelf life than rumor. Second, maintain your integrity. Don't sink to their level. Let your actions speak louder. Third, observe. The people who believe gossip without asking you directly, they were never fully with you. Because in the end, what they whisper about you reveals far more about their own darkness than it ever will about your light. You achieved something meaningful. A promotion, a personal breakthrough, a goal you've worked years to reach. You share the news, hoping for celebration. But what you get is a flat response, a forced smile, or a quick subject change. Maybe even silence. This is not just emotional distance. It's a revealing sign of something deeper. Resentment, masked as indifference. Carl Jung once said, "Inability to rejoice in others' joy reveals internal conflict." And when someone close to you can't celebrate your success, it often has little to do with you and everything to do with what your success reflects back to them. Your growth challenges their stagnation. Your light exposes the parts of them still in shadow. It triggers an unconscious comparison they didn't ask for but can't escape. And instead of cheering you on, they withdraw. Quietly, awkwardly, sometimes even bitterly. You'll notice it in small ways. They avoid saying congratulations. They minimize your achievement. Well, it's not that big of a deal. Or they immediately turn the conversation back to themselves. I actually did something similar a while ago. These aren't harmless quirks. They're signals of discomfort, envy, or a bruised ego. According to Jungian psychology, people who haven't faced their own failures tend to experience others' victories as personal threats. They see your success not as inspiration, but as proof of their inadequacy. And instead of owning that feeling, they cover it with apathy, or worse, passive-aggressive comments meant to dull your shine. But here's the truth. Your joy isn't selfish, and your wins aren't up for negotiation. The right people will never feel smaller because you're doing well. They'll rise with you. They'll clap without hesitation because they're secure enough in themselves to know that your success doesn't diminish theirs. The wrong people, however, will treat your progress like a spotlight on their failures. And instead of facing their own inner conflict, they'll quietly try to pull you down, or at least refuse to lift you up. You're not asking for praise. You're asking for presence, for sincerity, for the kind of support that celebrates you without conditions. So if someone close to you constantly reacts to your achievements with cool detachment, change of subject, or subtle criticism, it's not your imagination. It's their shadow speaking. And as Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Don't let someone else's unresolved story dim the joy you've earned. Your success deserves to be honored, not tolerated. Words can lie, but the body almost never does. Someone might say, "I'm happy for you," but their smile is tight. Their tone is flat. Their eyes don't quite meet yours. Something feels off, but you can't quite explain it. That's because you're not hearing the truth. You're seeing it. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious always finds a way to express itself, especially when we're trying to suppress emotion. And nowhere is this more obvious than in body language. When someone harbors hidden resentment or envy, their mouth might play along, but their body tells the real story. One of the clearest signs is the forced smile. A genuine smile involves the eyes. The corners crinkle, the gaze warms, the face relaxes. But a fake smile? It's all lips, no eyes. It's mechanical. It disappears the moment it appears, like a reflex, not a feeling. Then there's eye contact, or the lack of it. When you share something meaningful and they look away, blink too often, or stare just over your shoulder, it's not just nervousness. It may be discomfort. Your success, or even your honesty, might be activating something inside them that they don't want to face. And so, the eyes retreat. Because to see you is to confront themselves. Another revealing clue is the tone of voice. Even if the words are positive, the tone may betray tension. A low, clipped, or tight voice, while saying something congratulatory, isn't a celebration, it's containment. You're hearing someone hold something back. Then there are micro-expressions, fleeting, involuntary facial reactions that pass in less than a second. A flash of annoyance when you mention your win. A quick grimace when others praise you. These signals are almost invisible, but your nervous system catches them. That's why something feels off, even if you can't rationalize it. According to Jung, these slips are not mistakes. They are expressions of the shadow. The more someone tries to suppress what they really feel, the more the body will betray them. A clenched jaw, crossed arms, shallow breathing. The subconscious is screaming through muscle and movement. So what should you do when you notice these signs? Trust your instincts. Your body is picking up what they're trying to hide. This doesn't mean you should jump to conclusions, but it does mean you should pay attention. Observe the patterns, the tension, the timing, because in the end, the mouth can fake it, but the body always tells the truth. The most dangerous people aren't always the loudest. Sometimes, they're the ones who smile the most, who say the right things, who sit closest to you in your life. But deep down, something never feels quite right. You feel uneasy, confused, like you constantly have to explain away their words, their absence, their coldness. Here's a hard truth. People who genuinely care about you don't leave you in doubt. They don't make you question your worth, your success, or your sanity. They show up, not perfectly, but consistently. And if someone always leaves you feeling uncertain, off balance, or emotionally drained, then it's time to stop analyzing their behavior and start honoring your intuition. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Many of us stay in unhealthy relationships, friendships, family dynamics, partnerships, not because we don't see the truth, but because we refuse to act on it. We tell ourselves stories to justify what we feel. We excuse, we explain, we endure. But the truth is, your intuition is wiser than your logic. When your body tenses around someone, when your joy shrinks in their presence, when your light dims to protect their ego, that's not overthinking, that's knowing. It takes courage to see people clearly, and even more courage to set boundaries when those people are close. But closeness should never come at the cost of self-respect. So this is your reminder. Trust your instincts, reclaim your energy, redraw your boundaries, and allow yourself to walk away from anything that forces you to question your value. You don't owe loyalty to those who feed on your light. Sometimes, healing isn't about forgiving them. It's about finally believing yourself. If this video stirred something inside you, if it helped you see certain people or patterns more clearly, then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're building a space for deeper awareness, healing, and personal awakening. More content like this is coming. Lessons from psychology, philosophy, and the shadows of the human soul. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this video resonated the most with you? Was it the hidden sabotage, the silent competition, or that one moment where you finally saw someone's mask slip? Drop a comment below and let's open a conversation that matters. Because awakening doesn't happen alone. It happens when we start telling the truth.